we are wrapping up a collection of sermons that we've been in called Keep Digging. Someone say, keep digging. Keep digging. Yeah, let's go. So week 1 of Keep Digging, what we did was we just started digging. We looked at what does it look like to look at the soil in our life and to start pulling some of that soil out so we can find the purpose in that soil. And so we started asking some questions. We started doing some things. In week 2, we looked at, well, what happens when we get that soil, right? What happens when we pull out more things than we thought we did, and we have some things that we think might be purpose? How do we get through those things? We started sifting through those things. We started asking ourselves some questions. We started talking to ourselves, asking ourselves some questions. We started talking to others. We said we need to invite other people into our story so that we can ask them some questions. And then we said we need to talk to God. And a lot of times God's voice can be hard to discern, but we said if we did the first 2 right, we'll be able to find God's voice in the process. How many of you, I got a question for you. How many of you have a unique talent, like a unique hidden talent? Anyone? So, when I was a kid, I spent so much of my time learning like some really unique, weird talents that really didn't do a whole lot for me. Like for instance, I learned how to juggle, and I spent way too much time learning how to juggle. Like weeks of my life are gone, but guess what? If you hand me some oranges, I will throw those things. You know what I'm saying? I learned how to pogo stick. I was really good on a pogo stick. Like, I mean, I'm telling you, like we had this house that had this like concrete pad and it went all the way around the house, and I would just pogo out the front door, go all the way around the house, and then I'd end up back at the front door, and I'd pogo into our living room, and I would sit down with the pogo stick. Like I was really good at pogo sticking. And then the last one, which I think is like the most amazing one, is I was a pretty good magician. Like, not musician, magician. Like, I mean, if you caught me on a random Tuesday, I'll tell you to pick a card. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was out here just practicing magic. I had all these magic sets, and it was a good time. But what we're going to look at today is how to take some things, some talents that we have, and how we can use them, how we can shape them, how we can polish them to use them the way that God wants us to. It says like this in Ecclesiastes 10, verse 10. It says, if the axe is dull and its edge unsharpened, more strength is needed, but skill will bring success. Skill will bring success. What this is saying is, if you have an axe and it has no edge on it whatsoever, like this thing is just flat, right? You're just chopping away at trees with like a rectangle. You're not gonna get through the tree, right? But if you take time and you put an edge on that thing and you sharpen that thing and you really get that thing honed in, then you can chop through trees. You can use the skill that God has given you. And so what we're gonna look at today is not these goofy skills that like I worked on when I was a kid, but we're gonna look at the skills that God has put in you. We're gonna look at the gifts that he has put in you so that you can reach other people, and we're gonna see how we can polish these skills. What we're gonna do is we are going to polish our purpose. But before we can polish our purpose, I need you to be really confident in what the last 2 weeks' sermons. So if you haven't checked those out, if you haven't been here, if this is your first time here, I'm really glad that you're here. But if you haven't checked those out, you can go check them out on YouTube. We have a YouTube page called TheBrick.Church. You can watch both of them, and you can go through that process. I need you to be really confident that you went through that you asked the questions, that you dug, that you sifted, and then when you get here, we can start polishing. And the reason for that is because I need you to be really confident in God's voice. I need you to be really confident that this is the step that God has called you to take. I need you to be confident that this is the thing that you need to polish. And so the first thing we're going to do when we start polishing our purpose is we are going to get into rooms. We're going to get into rooms. See, here's the thing, is depending on what your gift is, it is going to take a different kind of polish. For instance, I have a few things here. I know this has probably been distracting. But like, if I want to clean these shoes, right, I'm going to use some shoe cleaner. If I want to get these things looking nice. Have y'all seen this shoe cleaner before? I know some of y'all sneakerheads in here. You spray some stuff on there like that, and you just take this thing and you just start that's really loud. I apologize for that. But you start like just scrubbing these things, right? I'm gonna use the shoe cleaner to do that. But the issue is a lot of times is we start trying to polish our purpose and we don't know what to polish it with. So we just start polishing it with the things that we have access to, right? And so we'll grab something like this. This is not a shoe. This is not leather. This is stainless steel. And we'll sit here and all I got is shoe cleaner. It's the only thing I have access to. It's the only thing that I know to use. I've cleaned my shoes with it before. It works. But maybe I can clean this with it. And so I'll spray it on there. And then we'll sit here and we'll just polish. And we'll polish. And we'll polish. And we'll wonder, that's actually looking worse than it did before I put that on there. That's actually not making it cleaner at all. Why is this not working? And it's because you're polishing the wrong thing with the wrong polish. I know there was a time for me when I first started playing drums. Actually, for a long time when I was playing drums, where I had this prideful thing about me where I wanted to tell people I was self-taught. I didn't want to take lessons because when people asked me if I played drums, I want to be like, yeah, I do, but I'm self-taught. I don't know what it was about that. I don't know if anyone else has that. But what ended up happening is I would get around some friends who took lessons, who were around some mentors who were really good at drums, and they'd be doing chops and stuff that I couldn't do. They'd be playing beats that I couldn't play, and I'd be like, yeah, but they're not self-taught like me. You know what I'm saying? I'm worse, but I'm self-taught. And I had this whole thing happening, and what I found out I ended up taking lessons later on. So I bought this course online, went through lessons with this guy who's a phenomenal drummer. And I got better in that 3-month period. I progressed more in that 3-month period than I had probably in the last 2 years. And what I found out was there were a lot of moments where I was doing this. There were a lot of moments where I was taking what was stainless steel and I was throwing some shoe cleaner on it. And I was just trying my best to make it work. But what those people allowed me to do, what that guy allowed me to do, is to polish with the right polish. So what we need to do is we need to get around people with a more polished purpose than yours. You need to get around people with a more polished purpose than yours. They don't have to be way, way in advance. They don't have to be 6 years ahead of you. They don't have to be 10 years ahead of you. They could be 6 months ahead of you. But you need to get around some people who have polished more than you, and it's time to ask them questions. It's time to invite them into your story. It's time to start asking how do I do this? How do I polish this thing? What would you do in this situation? And I have some practical things for you. If you are in here and you feel like you are called to do music, then tonight you need to find Fallon. You need to find our worship pastor, Fallon. You need to talk to her about it and see how we can help polish that gift for you. If you feel like you are a communicator, if you feel like God's calling you to communicate, find Pastor Taylor tonight, and we will start polishing the gift on your life. If you feel like you want to do something creative, like you do graphic design or photography or something, find me tonight, and we'll get you in an area where you can be polished. But no matter what your thing is, maybe it's none of those things. Maybe you do sports. Maybe you're an athlete. Maybe whatever it is, you need to find someone who has a more polished purpose than you, and you need to ask them questions, because until you do that, you won't know what kind of polish to put on your purpose. And so whenever, after we figure out what our polish is, what to actually put on our purpose, the next thing is to just start polishing. It's just time to just get to work. It's time to start polishing. It's time to start practicing. It's time to start putting a lot of time in to the thing that you feel like God's called you to do. It's time to start studying. It's time to start researching, and it's time to just get some reps in. Whenever you find out what the polish is, it's time to start polishing. So what do we do after we've started polishing? Well, what's the next step? Well, it's y'all are gonna like this next step. The next step after you start polishing is to do it again. You got to do it again. It says it like this in Chronicles 15:7. It says, "But as for you, be strong and do not give up, for your work will be rewarded." Your work will be rewarded. There's a saying. It's it's common in sports, and it says, "Practice like you play, so that when you play, it'll feel like practice." You have to put work into these things, and we live in a culture. I would call it a do it once culture. We live in a culture that is constantly telling you, if you don't do great the first time you do it, then you're just not called to it. If the first time you go to sing, those notes don't sound amazing, then you just must not be a singer. If you go and you try to play that instrument, and the first time you strike a chord and it's off, you just must not be good at it. It must not be your thing. And what I'm trying to tell you is that the gift on your life, the gift that God has put on your life, it is too big for it not to take work. It's too big for it not to take work. You are going to have to put some work into this thing. I'm not a natural communicator. Fallon was not a natural singer. Taylor was not a natural communicator. It takes time. It takes work. You have to work into these things. And I want to give you some examples of some people who put some work in. Y'all know who Ed Sheeran is, right? The redhead dude, plays guitar, sings. Yeah? Okay. Yeah, okay. There's videos of that dude. He could not sing, like at all. Like you can find them on YouTube. Like I could probably sing better than Ed Sheeran used to be able to sing. It is wild. Like dude could not sing at all. But that dude put some work in. And he kept at it. And now he has 51,854,304,629 streams on all of his platforms. That's wild. What if he would have just done it once? What if he would have just done it once? I'll give you another one. Walt Disney, the guy that did all of Disneyland, like created all these incredible worlds, created these cartoons that are like were groundbreaking at the time. That dude, he got fired from a job because, and I quote, he lacked imagination and had no good ideas. That's wild. What if he would have listened to him? What if he would have said, you know what? I'm going to hang up this dream because I guess I don't have any good ideas. I guess this really isn't my thing. And now, Disney is worth $193.94 billion. That's wild. He kept doing it. He didn't let the do it once culture talk him out of it. I'll give you one last one. This is a pretty famous one, but Michael Jordan, the basketball player, he was cut from his high school varsity team. He missed over 9,000 shots in his career. He was trusted to get the game-winning shot 26 different times and missed them. What if he would have quit? What if he would have decided this wasn't his thing? But he didn't. He kept putting work in. He kept doing it. And now he is a 6-time NBA champion. He has a net worth of $3.2 billion. And he has a legacy that will outlive him by far because he's considered one of the best basketball players of all time. What I'm trying to get you, I gave you those examples because what I'm trying to get you to see is that I don't want you to let failure pull you out of the process of polishing your purpose. I do not want you to have failure pull you out of the process of polishing your purpose. And what we'll find is like a lot of times we're here and we got the right polish because we asked the right people, right? And we're sitting here and we're like, you know what? I'm excited. Like, I'm going to start doing this thing. This is the thing God called me to. And I got the right polish, and I got the right people, and I started asking the right questions, and I'm polishing it. And then you get someone and they say, like, hey, man, that's not as shiny as it should be. Hey man, that gift on your life, that's not as good as this person's gift. And instead of keep polishing, instead of us spending more time, more elbow grease on this thing, we'll put it down. And we'll put it down because we'll think that they deserve a reaction from us. Or we'll put it down because we let them talk us out of it. Or we'll put it down because we got talked out of the gift that God put on our life. And what I'm trying to tell you, if you don't get anything else from this message, is do not let people pull you out of polishing your purpose. Do not let people pull you out of polishing your purpose. And so the third step, after we've done the first two, is we do it better. We're going to do it better. Here's the thing. You are more complex than metals and shoes. And what that means is, like, you can always take stainless steel and polish it with, this is white vinegar. You can always polish it with this, and it will always be polished. But you're more complex than this. The thing that polishes you in this season isn't the thing that's going to polish you in the next season. And so what we have to do is we have to do it better. We have to take time and we have to evaluate where we're at. We have to take time and evaluate what God is doing in our lives. And so the way that we do this is we do what we talked about last week. We bring people in, right? The people that are in our lives that we would ask the questions for, we bring them in and we ask them like, hey, what does this look like? What's my next step? How can I shift this? How can I change this? How can I get better than I already am? And some examples of this is like every time, I don't know if y'all know this or not, every time we preach, like not just me, but Pastor Taylor, Pastor Jared, Pastor Ryan, every single time we preach, we do a run through before. So days before we preach, we'll do a run through and we'll have other people in here to give us feedback. And it's because we are always trying to evaluate. We're always trying to process how can we be better. We're always trying to polish the gift that God has put on our lives. And the same way with the worship team. On Wednesdays and on Sundays, they have practice every time before they actually step on the stage. And because it's not enough to just do it, you have to be getting better. And the way that you do that is you constantly evaluate. And it's not just for stuff in the church. Like anyone that does anything great, this huge Taylor Swift tour that's happening right now, the show is incredible. Like it's huge. It's all these moving parts. Every time Justin Bieber's went on a tour, anytime anyone has ever done something great, they did it on the back end of practice. They did it on the back end of evaluating and doing it better. And so our third step is to do it better. And what we've realized, what I recognize with this series is that like this series in itself has just been like a lot of work. And I totally get that. Like the first week is just us just digging, just asking questions. The second week was us asking more questions. And we spent a lot of time just doing a lot, just asking a lot of questions, just trying to just keep going. And what I want to get you to see is the reason why we've done this series, like the reason why it is worth digging. It says it like this in Jeremiah 29:11. It says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." So why are we digging? Why are we going to take the moments? Why are we going to take the time to go through all of this stuff? It's because like I want you to know God has a plan for you that is huge. God wants to do something ginormous through you. God wants to do something through you that is bigger than anything that you can imagine. And this won't always be easy. There will be times, anytime God calls you to take a step, there will be times when it's stressful. There will be times when it's hard. There will be times when it feels like you want to do something else. And you have the option to do that. You have the option not to dig. You have the option not to sift. You have the option not to polish your purpose. But what I'm believing for and what I think that God is doing in the student ministry is he is rising up some students that are willing to do it. He's rising up some students that are bold enough to step into everything that God has for them. He's rising up some students that are willing to do the digging, that are willing to do the sifting, and are willing to polish their purpose because they will actually want to see the future and the hope that God has for them. And I believe that that's going to happen in the student ministry. And then years down the road, the fruit that we will see because you decided to do the work is going to be crazy. We're going to see generational curses break. We're going to see this place be different because of what you decided to do. Why is it worth doing the work? It's worth doing the work because that's how we get into God's plan. It's worth doing the work because that's how you step into the future and the hope that God has for you. And so Switch, my challenge for you is to start polishing your purpose. The thing is, you actually don't have to have your purpose fully polished to step into God's plan. It's about starting. My challenge to you is to start polishing this thing, ask all the questions, do all the things that you feel like God has called you to do because it's worth it. Let's pray.